Welcome to Karate Cafe, your source for martial arts conversation since 2005. And now, here's your hosts, Paul Wilson and Dan Williams.
Hello again, everybody. It's Paul here with another episode of Karate Cafe. On my center line, on my screen that is my good friend, Dan Williams. Dan, how are you?
Yes, I am well. Spring has sprung in Michigan. The birds are out. It's causing a cacophony, and
Pollen is flying.
the sun is shining, and it's 60 degrees. It's amazing.
You know, all us, martial artists that are in systems that do all that sort of heavy dynamic breathing and stuff like that. Spring's got to suck, right? Because,
Oh my
and
gosh.
pulling in all that pollen and blowing out all that snot, and it makes that easy
100%.
though. I'm not really breathing that hard. I'm just trying to clear phlegm.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Summer seems to be happening up here in Canada, slightly slower than in
Yes.
Minnesota, Michigan, but probably not that far off. And of
Not
course,
that far. No.
back home in Austin, it's already like 90. So so
Right.
you know
Hey, at least you're out of
where
the storms. The storms
exactly.
in Austin have been wicked lately.
Well, yeah, I mean, anytime we get rain or anything like
Hmm.
that, we don't get rain. We don't get a nice gentle lapping rain. We get like
Right.
ton of rain
A
and everything is dry,
deluge.
so everything water runs everywhere. It's a whole thing. I don't know, it's what it is. Yeah, super fun. But much better
Hey,
than digging out snow, which is what I was still doing this time last year. So
well, so yes, for all of those Tai Chi in the Park people, they can come
that's
back
right.
out of they can come out of their caves now.
Yeah, we're sort of gently planning our road show this summer. See where we're
Nice.
going. We're also yeah, I'm going to start reaching out to people to see if they want to train in the park. So for those of you who are on the Facebooks, keep an eye out because when I go places, I say where I'm going, and maybe we can meet up and do our
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, tons of fun. I like I went to a Wing Chun school near Detroit at some point, and the the Chi Sao drill that we do, the rolling hands,
Hmm.
it was really fascinating to do that with somebody not from my school. They have a different energy to them. They have a different
Absolutely.
movement pattern. And I remember, like the instructor, so I went there and there was a class going on and I was like, oh, I don't want to interrupt or anything. He's like, no, 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 no. So he and I went in the back and he rolled with me just to make sure I wasn't like dojo busting or something like that. And I remember him running out and being like, Dave, you got to roll with this guy for a second, because their energy was so forward and so crazy aggressive.
Hmm.
And that's not how I learned to do it.
Huh.
So it was fun and different for both of us,
Hmm.
just to get a feel for that kind of thing. So yeah,
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
think going to different schools is a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why we said many times on the show. It's like that's one of the reasons why I like doing it because A, I just like meeting people,
Yeah.
fellow martial art geeks and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But you get to see a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
Uh, B, uh, they get to see a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
And it's uh, when you do it, everyone's in their bubble. Even people that are
Right.
in the same system.
Yeah.
They're in their dojo bubble. This is the way the dojo does
Absolutely.
it, and there's nothing right or wrong with either one of those
No.
fundamentally. But it's good just to go, and it's not like a test. It's not pressure testing. It's not
That's the
blah
thing.
blah
It's
blah.
like
It's just
yeah.
okay. This is the way you
Yeah.
start building in presumptions on how things are going to work, and
Uh-huh.
if things don't
Uh-huh.
work that way,
Uh-huh.
then it's like, hey, but in my school, this technique always works. Well,
Right.
because
Yep.
your school attacks you the correct way. Everyone else is
Right.
attacking you wrong. So you need to go and
Yeah.
teach people how to attack you correctly.
Yeah.
Um, and and plus it's just fun. And for me, like when I travel, that's
Yeah.
one of the things is because I like to talk to people and say like, hey, where's a good place to eat? Where's the, whatever.
Yeah.
So you already have that fundamental sort of connection
Hmm.
uh, to
And I think
stream with.
people can can sense that when you walk in and you say, "Oh, I'm just traveling and sometimes I like to go to schools in the area just to check things out and like blah blah blah." They know you're not in there to like bust their chops or
Yeah.
try and dojo bust or whatever the case might be. They'll they'll always, I think, always be suspicious of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
But
I've
you
even
can allay
like
their
even when
suspicions pretty quick.
yeah, I've even visited dojo where the instructors were actually, were pretty nice and, kind of open and stuff like that. But you could always tell there was still that little remove
Yep.
of,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
like
Are
like
you
a,
are you
I
trying to beat me are you trying to
yeah, or
disrespect me in any way in front of my
yeah,
students or something like
yeah.
that?
And what I usually do when I invite people or people just happen to pop into my dojo for whatever reason,
Hmm.
I started trying to do a thing where I'm more like especially if they were instructor level, I'd say like you teach me. Like teach us your basics
Yeah,
or teach
there you
us one
go.
of your kata or
There you go.
whatever.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that
That's a
way
great
it's like
idea.
just show us what you do, and then
Yeah.
then that starts the conversation of
Yeah.
like, okay, well, this we do this way, you do it that way. Why do you do it that way? Why is that? Okay, how
Right?
okay, so this is like our thing, whatever here,
Yeah.
and I think that's a more positive way as opposed to someone, I mean, of course, I don't expect people to come in and like teach my students,
Right, right. No, right. Sure.
but my take is, someone's popping in, they're coming here for a day or two, whatever. They're in
Yeah.
town for a day or two, or they just
Yeah.
they start. It's like, show us your stuff, man.
Let's
I mean, I don't
collaborate,
I don't know everything. Yeah, a collab,
Right.
get some
Collab.
synergies.
Collab.
That's right. That's what the kids
Once
say. But
again, we're
anyways,
starting with a tangent
I know.
before we even
Well,
start our topic.
let's get the tangent off the top. That way we can just
Well, no more
drill in.
tangents from here on out.
There'll be no more tangents.
Uh-huh.
Honest. You can trust us. We're podcasters.
Right. Right. We're professional
Yeah.
podcasters.
So the topic today, which I haven't figured out a name for the episode, but is maybe like Alas, Chuck Norris.
Yeah. I like that one. Alas, Chuck
Yeah.
Norris.
So as maybe one or two people out there have heard,
Couple.
Chuck Norris passed away recently, a couple weeks ago now. We've been trying to do this for a couple of weeks, but the green room was going under renovation. What can we do?
Right.
Um, so
My
Cardi
place is a
Cafe Studio
mess
gets.
still,
I know,
so
really, you got to straighten that up. Unlike
jeez.
my
You're
wonderful
very nice.
space.
Very nice.
Well, all my virtual students came here and clean. My virtual students clean my dojo backdrop. So
Nice.
comes clean. That's good. For those of you who are listening, we're talking about the backdrop.
Yes.
So,
Sorry.
yeah, it's okay. So anyway, he passed away, and Dan and I were chit-chatting as we often do, and I was noticing that like the first day was like, oh, Chuck Norris has passed away, the legend, whatever.
Hmm.
When I first started karate, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
As to be expected. But for me, what I noted is that within 24 hours, it pivoted to like, I mean, I actually had people reach out to me on my post about like, oh, we lost Chuck Norris, and they were like, oh, he was a horrible human. He was ultra conservative. He was
Yeah.
COVID-19 denier. Whatever, blah 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 blah, and. I think those are probably fair. I didn't do a ton of research because why would I
I
bother
have no
doing that
idea.
on a podcast, right? Because in a podcast, you don't need research.
No. We just
We're
this
in
is
the,
just we just say stuff. We're just
I
saying
know.
stuff.
Well, really, it's like, probably arguably, martial artists have been in the, somebody told me, that space for like far
Right.
longer than like world leaders and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that's the other
Just
thing is
like,
at least we're upfront about the fact that we don't really know anything. I think there are a lot of podcasts out there. They don't know anything, but they sure speak with a lot of confidence.
right.
So,
And
yeah.
all our opinions, exact the same weight.
There
So
you
anyway,
go. There you go.
but for whatever your political leaning or bent or your your what drives your soul, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Story goes that I mean that Chuck Norris was a little more on the right side of the spectrum of values in America, I guess, and whatnot. And anyway, so but it turned like really fast. Like there was, I mean,
Yeah.
like I say, less than 24 hours, people were like,
Hmm.
oh. the heck with Chuck Norris. Where, when like Gene LaBelle passed away, or
Right.
name any of your, anyone in pretty much in any system in the last 10, 15 years or whatever, there was always a time of quiet reflection and people going like,
Right.
oh, I really, like what was it? Our close personal friend Ian Abernathy posted that Peter Constantine, who was like sort of their guru of his
Okay.
world of martial arts in Britain and stuff like that, had passed away recently, and arguably a less well-known, probably, person than maybe Chuck Norris because he was but I think they were around the same age. Chuck Norris maybe a little bit older, but anyway, but it was pretty understated, and I never saw anyone post anything
Hmm.
bad about it, and whatever. Uh, so and that was just there's usually a good week week or two of
Right.
everyone expressing their telling their stories and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So I want to relate that to anyone who wants to comment can clearly comment about what they thought about Chuck Norris and what they did for him as a martial artist. Like for me, like we were talking about in the green room, it is like for me, Chuck Norris uh, appealed to me, and like for whatever amount of motivation I received from Chuck Norris, it ended at Lone Wolf McQuade. Everything after Lone Wolf McQuade, the Walker years, and whatever.
The Walker years. Right.
They were done as, Lone Wolf McQuade,
Yeah.
Delta
I mean,
Force, all those,
right.
Good Guys Wear Black,
Um,
the Octagon, that was, the like I didn't even know he was in uh Fast and whichever Bruce Lee one he was in.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, and everyone right
Enter
now
the
is
Dragon.
like, Enter the Dragon, right? Thank you. It's like I didn't realize he was in that until well after I knew who he was. And
Ah.
then, so anyway, but he was Tang Soo and blah blah blah. What
Hmm.
had no real, but just I mean the fact he was around, he was like one of the original martial arts stars. So
Right.
I actually got one of his students a few years ago. He had in Texas. He does the like the sidekicks or whatever the after school martial art program, and he like
Oh
created
yeah,
a whole
yeah.
system for it.
Yeah.
And so I had one of his students that actually had trained in the school program, and then he wanted to do something else. So his dad brought him to art, and he was 12, 13 or whatever. Really good. He was really good. So,
Yeah. Well, and
so anyway,
yeah,
so
that's yeah.
to bring that around, and then also is like, so we can talk about that Chuck Norris thing, but then the overarching thing is also we have all had pretty much. I'm willing to bet pretty much everyone, and within the sound of my voice, has had people in their martial art orbit that were turned out to be sketchy, or
Sus.
there was sus, as the kids say.
That's right.
Yeah, spill that tea, fam.
Ah,
We stay relevant here on Party
that's
Cafe.
right.
Uh, the people that were, like it could have been their instructor, it could have been the person who started the federation or group or whatever, or somebody, some senior person that was a mentor or a guiding light for you.
Hmm.
It turned out to be maybe not so much, and it could
Yeah.
be like something that was bad, or it could be something that was just like, like in the last 20 years, where we've found a lot of people that we trained in your
Hmm.
martial orbit that are like maybe not aligned with you politically, maybe not aligned with you spiritually, and now it used to not, as far as I mean, coming up, I didn't care. I didn't care about politics. I didn't care
Right.
about
Nobody
anything.
knew. It just
Yeah.
didn't, it's not something you talked about, really.
Over the course of the time, when you become a grown ass person, and then you find out stories about people that, or people you train with, are like,
Yeah.
so anyway, so the confusing legacy of Chuck Norris also ties into, Joe Sacadonitz at the dojo, right?
Yeah. It does. And
Discuss.
well, I think one of the big factors was that Chuck Norris was famous as well, right? So
A little bit.
he had a political, not a political, he had a public persona as well as a private persona.
Hmm.
And, I was just thinking like, I think most, if not all, the instructors I've had, I have no idea what their political leanings are.
Yeah.
Um, because it's not something we talk about, right? And I think it just depends on the kind of person you are. It's not something I cared enough about to like make sure they didn't have an opposing political view as me or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and I do think, uh, um, the things that you bring up, like, well, what if it's not political? What if it's, something bad, right?
Yeah.
Where it turns out this person is just a bad person, right?
Right.
That it's tough for me because I also think, I think of like Chuck Norris's career and all the people that he got into martial arts and
Mhm.
all of the kids that are healthier now or
Right.
understand the importance of exercise and the discipline of martial arts and the movies he made uh, to popularize things. And what does
And
he had
what
that
happens when you
combat
shoot someone's dog
and what right, yeah.
before John
What
Wick?
that's right. Um and he had that fighting thing for a while. It was like the UFC but
Yeah.
different rules and that
Right.
was kind of cool. And I wish like that had been more of a thing than it was. And so I think yes, I may or may not agree with his political stance, but I don't know that even then that makes him a bad person, right? Like, and then you do get to the point where, because like I've heard these horror stories of like instructors doing very bad things to their
Mhm.
students, right?
Yeah.
And those are just bad people.
Yeah.
Um,
And
can
like
you
for a
t
while, not just like a moment. It's like
yeah,
they low key. They're keeping it on the DL, as the
yeah,
kids say,
yeah,
and they're it's uh lengthy. It's like not just like an
yes,
isolated incident. Yeah.
yeah. And so I think the important thing, at least in my perspective, is that this is why I would say never put an instructor or a martial arts personality on a pedestal of any kind, right? Because
Yeah.
we are all human beings. That's the bottom line. You
Well,
know,
according to the memes, Chuck Norris was not a human being.
well, I mean, it's yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. But point being is that if we get into this kind of idea of hero worship, I think um um we have that conflict when some of that stuff happens and we also will tend to blindly follow that person as well, right? Because
Yeah.
the assumption is that, well, if they're right about this domain of expertise, then somehow they're right about a different one. I mean, look at all the I've always thought it's funny with like celebrity sponsorships and something, right? Like
Mhm.
um buy this buy this energy bar because they're famous. And you go, what do you know about energy bar? Like,
Yeah,
why would
exactly.
I trust you other than any other human being on the planet? Are you an expert taster or like what's going on here? So I, I I I tend to make sure I separate that stuff in my head.
Yeah,
And
and it's the separation that I think,
mhm,
used to be much easier because
yes,
there's, we're moving into a more, skeptical, I do my research, world.
right,
Whereas before, and of course, we have the internet, so, people can just say whatever they want and it's everywhere.
right.
So it's probably harder for that. You would think it would be harder for that kind of thing
You would
to go
think.
on. But like we were talking about in the green room, like there was somebody that was high up in my organization, uh, that martially, I've never heard anyone that knew this person not go like one of the best martial artists I've ever seen.
Mm,
Like they're amazing instructor, they're da 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 da, me included. But then later as I moved on in the world, I later found out that a lot of the things that this person was saying, not necessarily uh, truthful,
yeah,
So, and things happen and they're no longer in the association and stuff like that. Or we're training with people who are like peers
yeah,
at my level, or junior to me and whatnot. And you find out bad things about them.
right.
And you have to like figure out, where does the line draw? Where do you go, like that is, and pick your behavior, right? Something that's illegal, something that's not.
Right. There's a spectrum here we're talking about, right?
Right, right. So it's
Yeah,
like how bad is bad?
yeah,
If it involves, legal authorities, that's probably bad.
right.
Or something that is against the law.
Yeah,
But then also just in general, like low key, just basically lying, misrepresentation. Yes, I trained at the Shaolin Temple and blah 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 blah.
yeah.
Okay, and then
You know what
many
I
years
see a
later, you find
lot?
out that's not true.
Yeah, what I see a lot is I trained with this particular person. And you dig in, and what it really means is there was a weekend seminar with that person.
Yeah. And you got a
Right?
participation certificate and
And you go, that's very sketchy, and you shouldn't
yeah,
really do that. Does that
right,
make you a bad
and
person? Does that make your martial arts worse? Like,
right, and
really?
our argument and so that's it's like where does that break? Where is it,
Yeah,
like someone who's a fantastic martial artist and
yeah.
knows a lot of stuff and is very good at whatever.
Hmm.
Good being a good instructor, being a good martial artist, being a good, whatever. Da, 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 da. They just have this small little, or actually, no, correction, no, just this component in their life
Right.
that in this case, in the case of Chuck Norris, they're talking about politically,
Yeah.
he was on the conservative plus, let's say,
Hmm.
side of things, which, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, wouldn't have mattered. Maybe even 15 years ago, wouldn't have mattered so
Wouldn't have
much.
mattered. Wouldn't have mattered.
It
Yeah.
was like, well, he's all right, whatever. But because I think
Right.
probably, and one of the ways that I kind of landed on that was, like I say, like for me, the good Chuck was Lone Wolf McQuade and earlier.
Yeah.
There was a time like in the after Lone Wolf McQuade in the last,
Hmm.
20 years or so where he was
Yeah.
like, he did the stretching machine with Christy Brinkley and,
Right.
he did that Fight Club thing that you were talking about. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's a famous guy and he's got bills to pay, so
Right. Yeah.
he's doing sponsor, whatever. And I mean, he's going to seminars
Yeah.
and yada, yada, yada. But he was famous and people wanted to get a picture with
Yeah.
him. And people wanted to get the influence through him and
And
whatnot.
I get sort of like I know that there are actors whose movies I kind of avoid. Like one of my toughest ones, I'll just admit it, I can't imagine the comments, is Tom Cruise. I think Tom Cruise is a crazy person. And
And there's the opener.
it right, it influences whether I want to watch his movies or not. And it doesn't influence the quality of his act. I mean, the
Great
conflict I
movies.
have is
Yeah.
that he makes some damn good movies, right?
Right.
And it's not like I avoid it or anything. It's just like, you know, um, because I do think that
And they usually
somebody's,
have good fight scenes. Damn it.
yeah, they do, I know. Somebody's life externally can influence my attitude towards their art, call it, right? And
Mhm.
so I would understand where if someone said, well, I don't want to go to a Chuck Norris school because I believe that Chuck Norris is wrong in his political views,
Hmm.
and I don't want to support him. I'd be like, that seems reasonable. Like you could do
Yeah,
that.
all
I
right.
whether I agree or not is different, but I
Yeah.
don't, that doesn't seem like, and for that matter, if, I mean, geez, if you found out that your instructor was like super racist or something,
Yeah.
and you hadn't realized it, right? There you go in, there's a
Uh-huh.
bunch of white people, and you're just like, oh, it's fine, like no big deal, because
Yeah.
that's the mixture of the neighborhood or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
And I think it's perfectly valid to be like, I don't want to associate with that person anymore, and that's totally okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But
It's
also like to necessarily then dismiss any of the good things. I mean, if you trained with this person for 6 months and then found out, and then to go, well, I'm just gonna that was a wasted 6 months. Like, no, not
hmm.
necessarily. I mean, that wasn't a wasted 6 months. So like
Right.
the
Yeah.
things that
Well,
Chuck
that
Norris
kind of
did were still
goes
good things.
right, right. Well, I mean, that kind of goes back to my bugaboo with the our practical karate brethren who are like, "Oh, style that I did for 30 years sucks because this. Ugh,
Nah.
I'm going over here and training with Abernathy or going to
Right.
Krav Maga or whatever, or but then they're still wearing their gi and they're still wearing their belt and
Yeah.
and they're still teaching pretty much 60% or so of the stuff that they've been doing. Now they
Uh-huh.
just do it in a little bit different way. It's like, yeah, okay, so you didn't trash all that stuff for a reason.
Right.
And so,
Right.
it's like, okay, so if you found out like, yeah, for me, and this is great, I would love to hear some good comments from all you fine karate caffeinators out there. Um, and for those of you watching on the YouTube that are not karate caffeinators, you should be, and you are, I guess, by default by watching this. But you
You're
can comment
here,
there too
so
or
you're in
Spotify
now,
Karate
sucker.
Kappa Spotted. That's right, we've pulled you in.
Half a
Um,
spot.
is is I would have like if I trained with somebody for X number of time,
Yeah.
and then I found out that like yeah, like they were like in their off hours, you
They're
know,
off, right.
That's I mean, and there's the difference, difference between on the floor, right, and then out in the house, on the street.
Absolutely.
If you go out in the street and you find out they're wearing a white robe and or doing wrong things that they should be doing with people
Hmm.
or generally unsavory behavior, stuff like
Hmm.
that, I would really have no problem going like, okay, I'm out of here because it's
Bye.
just,
See ya. Not somebody I
you
want to associate with.
not somebody I want to associate with.
Yep.
Um, like, I had a friend and he was arrested in his pending trial for some unsavory behavior. And we were pretty good buddies, and we
Hmm.
trained together, saw very eye to eye, martially, da 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 da. But when that happened, I was like,
Yep.
yeah, I talked to him a couple
Yeah.
times because I didn't really know what had gone on, and then I did my research, as everyone likes to say these days, and I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, so
Yeah. I think too that, as far as
eh,
like association goes, I don't know. I learned early in my life that um somebody can be one person with you and then sort of a different person when
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
like with
absolutely,
their other friends and things like that. At the same time, I have learned that um like for me, I uh anybody that I know that's doing like hard drugs, I don't want to have anything to do with them.
yeah,
Like, I'm not going to say you're a bad person. I'm not going to do anything like that. I just, I know that simply being around that is not good for my
yeah,
life, right? So I don't want to know you because I don't really want to know who you know. I don't want to run into a
yeah,
situation where we're in a car together and you just got to pick something up, or,
Yeah, really. No,
like,
that's
nope, I'm out, I don't want
right.
to associate with that person. And so I
Yeah.
think that's perfectly okay. But, kind of back to Chuck Norris, I don't think it's great to throw the baby out with the bathwater, especially when, we're not talking about illegal things. We're not talking about heinous crimes. We're talking about a
Right.
political opinion, right?
Yeah.
And so, I guess some people could see, like, I think one of them was COVID denial or something like that, right? So
Right.
people could say, well, you're hurting people by propagating that story. Sure, but I don't know Chuck Norris. I mean, he owes me $5 still, but I'll hopefully get that in his will. Who knows?
Yeah,
Um,
sure. I'm sure it's going to come to
right.
you.
So, I feel like he probably thought he was doing what he thought was right. And so he's not saying, I'm going to say this to harm people.
Hmm.
He's saying, I'm going to say this because I think I'm helping people and not harming them. He he may have been, and I don't know, I haven't done the research. He may have been wrong, but that doesn't make him bad, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Well,
like,
and that's the other component, or one of the other components that you touched on already on this, is like he was a famous guy,
yeah,
and famous people like being famous, right?
that's
So,
true.
so like I say, post Lone Wolf McQuade is
Yeah,
when he was kind of, from in my mind, kind of in the wilderness a little bit. He was older, martial arts was changing. He was,
yeah,
and like from a martial arts standpoint, when according to the data, it's like he was one of the proponents of, like, he didn't, like, when Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blew up, he wasn't like, screw that. Like, he trained in Brazilian
absolutely
Jiu-Jitsu.
not. Yeah, yeah,
He was a guy that, like, he was a martial artist, and then he became a movie guy because he was a martial artist.
hmm,
It was, kind of, and then it went from there, right? So, and then he went from being a martial artist to a famous person.
yeah, yeah,
So after, in his years of, like, and it was, the genre of movie that he was part of went on the decline.
yep,
So he had, but he has bill to pay, right? So he was still Chuck Norris. So
yeah.
he,
I'm going to go on a little
did,
tangent.
well, hang on, let me finish my thought.
Okay,
And
okay.
hang on to that tangent, my friend. So there's an argument to be made that some of the things that he did was because he had to keep his name out there.
Yep.
So he made sketchy business deals or questionable business deals. He hung out with questionable people because they were famous at the time. He accepted speaking engagements because that was money, and it was somebody that he wasn't
Hmm.
unaligned with, for what, and then it just kind of went from there. And then,
Yeah.
you know, take a picture with the wrong person at the wrong time, at the wrong position, and it goes on. So there's not necessarily an apologetic side of it, I guess. Maybe a nuanced letting go of uh, his actions, because
Yeah.
he's a famous person. He just wants to stay famous. Tangent.
No, yeah. Yeah. So my tangent, yes. I think I think it was the Matrix that started this. The Matrix kind of started this idea of uh instead of martial artists learning to be actors, actors learning to be martial artists.
Yeah.
And I watched the fight scenes again in the Matrix.
Not so much.
I challenge anyone to watch The Matrix or uh The Bourne Identity back to back with Drunken Master.
Ooh,
Right? I'm just
there you
saying.
go.
I'm just saying. I think
Okay,
I
that's
think
the
we
lead.
I think we need to bring back movies with martial artists. I mean, look at Michael Jai White, right? His movies are amazing and the fight scenes are awesome because he's a martial
Right.
artist.
And
Um,
special aside, for a brief moment, I was talking with Michael Jai White about
that's
getting on the
right.
show.
That's right.
And and then I can't remember what happened. Something went on, and like the address, the email address that I was talking to him on, I messaged him on what was then Twitter, and he messaged me back, gave me an email. I emailed him, and I was emailing back and forth, and I was talking to his assistant, and then like that company folded. Like maybe he just had like a little company, and it folded, and whoosh, the email address didn't work anymore. I'm like, all right,
Mm,
bummer. So
maybe
Michael,
it's
if
time
you're
to
out
follow
there,
up on that.
I would. Well, remember I told you I'm not chasing interviews anymore. I mean,
Right.
if
It's too much.
I stumble across, I was talking.
Right.
So okay, so here's my Chuck Norris story.
Yeah.
Was when I was living in Dallas. Some of my friends they were in the movie industry. They were production-y type people, makeup artists and grips and whatnot. And they went. Actually, they had gone to. Somehow we were talking, and they said like, "Oh, we went to Chuck Norris's house." And I was like, "What?" And he was doing one of those, the whatever exercise machine thing he was on, and they were doing some shooting there for that. And he's like, "Yeah, he says I was in Chuck Norris's bedroom, and whatever." Anyway, so he was, you know, we were talking about it,
Yeah.
and I was like, do you know his manager? Can you hook me up?" And he goes, "Yeah." Well, he was like, "Yeah, his agent or his
His
manager or
handler or
whatever
whatever. Yeah.
was. I mean, they had to work because it was small. It was like for the commercial, right? So it wasn't like a huge, set or anything. It was just
Yeah.
six people or however many. Um, and anyway, so for a little while I was pursuing trying to like I was like if I could get freaking Chuck Norris, that'd be awesome.
Dude, that would have
Um,
been crazy.
that would have been crazy, but alas,
Alas. And
yeah.
now we are.
And now I'd have to burn that episode because like people would be like, "Oh, Chuck Norris, get him
Exactly.
on there." But
Right.
this would have been almost 20 years ago, where like,
Yeah.
was he still good then? People change over the course of their existence. And like I say, with him,
Yeah.
he was a martial artist, then he was a movie guy, then he was a famous guy, then he was, a pitch man, then he was, whatever. And then he was a cameo, then he was a meme generator, and then he was, da, da, da. So but for us, mere mortals,
Yeah.
we still deal with people that are like, should I hang with that person? Should I not hang with that person?
Hmm.
Should I attend that event because that person is attending that event? And so then there's the other question is like, where do you, and of course this will be different for every person, but it's like, well, like where do you draw the line for, because
Yeah.
it's your training, like at the end of the day, it's your training. It's like,
Yeah.
if you go to this dojang, school, studio,
Coon.
you name it, academy, and yeah, and you get quality instruction, And I was just saying it's like it's not even the head guy. Let's just say it's one of it's like when do you go like, okay, this is compromising my training, or can I ignore that? Can I
Hmm.
not train with that person?
Hmm.
Um, and do you, and do
Yeah.
you take that up with whomever and go, hey, this person over here kicks puppies, and I can't handle kicking puppies, but they're your student, or or they're your senior student, or they run the studio for you when you're not here, and I just
Yeah.
can't abide that like
Yeah.
where do you go there?
Yeah. I think, you know, uh, uh, I was just gonna say anything illegal is right out, but if they're cheating on their taxes, who cares, right? Um, I don't know. For me, it really comes down to um, not even a, a question of do I want to learn martial arts from this person,
Mhm.
right? Because they're whatever thing I disagree with isn't going to affect if their martial arts is good or not. Um,
Right.
Now, if I feel I can't trust the person, then it's out. Then that's done right there, right? If I can't trust the person, certainly if I don't feel safe around the person,
Oh,
that's
certainly.
that's that's gone right there. But it really to me becomes a matter of, I guess, two layers, right? Do I want to support this person? So if I'm paying this person money, that means I am supporting their business and in turn supporting them.
Hmm.
So that becomes a question for me of saying, again, like back to the racist thing. You could you could be perfectly on point with your martial arts. You could be the friendliest person otherwise. But if you're racist, like I don't want to support you. I don't really want to be around you. I'm choosing to extract myself from the situation. So I guess that's the other line is one is support and two is you are creating an association with this person that other people will see, right? Because
Right.
let's say you go through their school, you go, their personal business is just their personal business. It's not a big deal. You go through their school, you get your rank from them, and suddenly people go, "Oh, you got your black belt from so and so? Aren't they like super racist?" And you go,
Right.
"Oh yeah, but it was no big deal." Uh, right? Like,
Yeah,
so, some people are a little racist.
he was super racist, but he was casually racist. So,
That's right. Yeah.
it wasn't a
Yeah.
professional thing. It
Yeah. And
was more of a
I just use that
enthusiasm.
one because I think it's one that people can sort of agree on pretty widely, right?
Yeah.
Um, and
Well, and also it's
so
one that's not like
it's not
it's good. It's
politically
good.
charged, really,
Well, but you just wouldn't see it, right? It's not like, I mean, unless you're wearing like a t-shirt that's,
Right.
stating the obvious or whatever. And like, they walk into the class and they've got, kill all insert, whatever. And
Right.
you're like,
Hmm.
and they're like, hang on, let me change my gi. Do, 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 do. And they come
Right.
out and they're like,
Right.
let's go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they get
Yeah.
back and they're like, oh, late for the clan meeting. Gotta go. Yeah,
Right.
or
I wait
class
for
is
the clan
canceled because
meeting.
we're burning a synagogue, and like,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
you are creating an association to that person.
yeah,
Um, and you're also supporting that person.
right.
And I would
You know,
say,
as an aside, sorry,
mhm.
as a
No, no.
many is with the current shenanigans going on over in Iran
Hmm.
or Iran, depending on
Shenanigans.
it was shenanigans. Uh, is and this would be a good question for our Krav Maga. But by the way, the question that we had, the episode we did a few episodes back about uh, does size matter and all that. I reached out to that Krav Maga instructor and they never got back to me. So I don't know if I reached out and just said, hey, we did this episode. I didn't,
Yeah.
and nothing. But anyway,
That's how
that's
right
his.
we were.
Yeah, he was like, mic drop, bro. Nothing. Um, uh, is like schools are like Krav Maga schools, right? Which
Yeah.
are very much aligned with their identity as a martial arts that was developed in Israel, or martial arts
Yes.
system that was developed in Israel and stuff like that. Is like I would like to anyone who does Krav Maga out there, like and like real Krav Maga, like the ones that are super identified with with their Israeli heritage, reach out and let us know. Is like is this affecting your guys' training or your
Yeah,
school
that
or how you
that
feel
is
about stuff?
interesting, right?
Because because that would be, I think, maybe a sort of direct a direct connection to
Yeah,
this
it'd
topic
be
because it's like, our system, our whole system came from a place which is politically charged. I mean,
yes.
arguably, yes, has been for what
Ever
70 years now or
70
whatever,
years, yeah.
if not more. But like, is there any blowback? Are there people going like, "Oh, you do Krav Maga?" Ugh, and
Right.
or like, yeah,
Yeah.
you do Krav Maga, bro,
Yeah.
whatever. It would be interesting for anyone out there who knows to share that with us because I would like to know. Because I think it really ties in.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I was thinking about it. Like, I feel like um I hate to do this, but excluding some of the MMA folks, right?
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of martial artists tend to be um sort of balanced and thoughtful. Maybe I'm crazy. Um, but I mean, obviously there are exceptions, right?
Sure,
But
sure.
it's, I would be surprised if any of the people criticizing, um, I almost said Steven Seagal, terrible me, Chuck Norris were martial artists,
Yeah.
right? Because as martial artists, we go, and I think maybe it is a lot in part in that you work with a lot of people in your school. You work with a
Hmm.
lot of people. In fact, this is kind of an interesting thing, is there was one of the other students that I used to work out with, and he every once in a while said some racist stuff in the dressing room. Not like,
Hmm.
but like people should die kind of thing, but just
Yeah.
like, oh, it was probably a that color guy kind of thing, right? And it's just
Yeah.
like super cringy, and I just kind of avoided him in the school.
Yeah.
And I think maybe one of the things that happens in throughout a martial arts career is you you like interact with a lot of people. You just
Hmm.
interact with a lot of people, and you interact with a lot of people with a lot of different political views, even
Yeah.
if you don't know them or do know them. And it's
So
about
now
the
I got two
martial arts.
tangents. Yeah.
We'll
Okay.
take one at a time, unless the
Okay.
tangent on our
Right.
first tangent.
So the second tangent will be the portion I want to talk about because it talks about what you is like, yeah, and that's true. I think that an argument or not an argument, what do you want to call it? Anyway, so like I think that a traditional school, traditional like Okinawan school or traditional
Hmm.
Japanese school, any traditional school that is like firmly traditional in the sense of like, they're not a storefront, they're not a McDojo, they're not whatever. So it's like, the pool will be smaller, right? So,
Yes.
like we know, like when I was coming up, I trained with the same five people for probably 10 or 15 years, right? Because I mean, and people would come
True.
and go, right? You would have people that would join and stay
Right.
for a couple, 3 months and drop. But like
Right.
the people that you trained
The
with,
core people. Yeah.
yeah, are like, those are people
Yeah.
who you're with for decades, and
Right.
sometimes. So kind of like, finding where the water level goes
Yes.
in a traditional school, I would argue, is probably easier because people tend to train with there's less churn
Hmm.
and and so you kind of get to know people, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of school people who are just like they come in, they train, they leave. They don't care.
Yep.
It's not a social thing for them, But like schools like our good friends in Taekwondo, or increasingly
Hmm.
so like Krav Maga or the fairly based self defense or MMA schools, or da, 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 da,
Yeah.
you know, it's a gym, or whatever. It's a
Right.
you don't sit around and talk politics or whatever with the people at Gold's Gym, you know
Right.
the
You
guy
go
who's
there, you
spotting you
work
today.
out, you're out.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and someone shows up and they pay for their 6 month introductory class and they get their gi and they train and they go
Right.
and they drop out, or they train for a couple of years or they get their black belt and they drop out. So I
Hmm.
think maybe the type of school is probably
Yeah.
fairly important because like yeah, you're not going to train with that person for a bunch because you may never see him again,
Right.
or they may go to a different class. Maybe they were just in your class. You do the Tuesday night class. They happen to have Tuesday night off. They came to class, and then you may never see them
Right.
again. So, in a commercial, larger sort of school, I bet this is less of a problem in the student body than it is then you have the person at the top that's doing sketchy stuff to keep the doors open, or because he has
Yes.
a target-rich environment, or she. Let's be real. Anyway, that's going on. So anyway, that's tangent one. Tangent two is I want to talk to all our karate caffeinators out there, and you guys know who I'm talking about. Is if when Steven Seagal shuffles off this mortal coil, are people going to be going like, "Oh, Steven Seagal,"
Right.
because arguably like Under Siege, everything after Under Siege, and and that was like third movie, like
I was
well,
gonna
okay, no,
say, you didn't
throwing
like
out
Under
like
Siege
out.
2? Come on, man.
Sorry, no, throwing out like Out for Justice. That was, so his breakoff point for me is a little more nuanced because I mean he did a couple crappy movies. Then he did a good movie, and then he did anyway. Um, some might say after Above the Law, everything after that was
Hmm.
junk. But anyway, again, he was a martial artist, then became a movie guy, then was famous, and for arguably probably longer, I imagine, than maybe what you would
Yeah.
think of Steve Chuck Norris's
I
later
think,
waning years. Like
yeah,
he's really actively been trying, in my opinion, to like
yeah,
A, hold on to some sort of relevance, but B, be kind of skeevy.
I think so too. I think arguably Steven Seagal was more famous than Chuck Norris. I think
Yeah, I think Chuck's more of a
ah,
plateau, or like
maybe
he
that's what
kind
it
of went
is,
whoop and then kind of
right?
came up and then kind of and
Yeah,
where Stephen Call kind of like I don't know where,
yeah,
and then kind of plummeted. Yeah, he
yeah,
peaked and then
yeah. But like, I don't know, like I say, I'm not gonna shit on Steven Seagal when he dies, you know? It's just
he's
like
behind you. What?
um yeah, yeah, I should I should get a background of Steven Seagal looking
Yeah,
over my shoulder. Um
you'd have to get the wide
uh
lens though. Oh,
right?
but
Because I
for Steven Seagal though, I mean like. I know many people that talked about Chuck Norris, and one of the things they talked about was like he was a really good martial artist. He was a really good fighter. He
Mhm,
was, da da da, very dedicated to the martial arts. I know probably an equal amount of people that say, Chuck Norris was legitimately a really good martial artist. you know,
right. Yeah,
and then
100%.
whatever. Uh, but a lot more of the, like, stories came out about Steven Seagal much sooner than just like the Chuck Norris, like, he's politically kind of, you know,
Right.
and then there are people who go like, well, because, they were whatever they did about COVID, they're horrible, because that's their cutoff. But just like sort of general, like they had political views and they didn't think we should wear a mask and, whatever, you know, okay,
Okay.
uh,
And that's
but
my attitude too. It's like, okay.
but the stories coming out about Seagal, some of them were like, pretty yucky, pretty
Yes.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And but there were still consistently, I would still see a lot of people, martial arts type people, 50-50, of like he's really good and the stuff he does is really good. Like Jesse Enkamp did that video with him where I mean like it's like technically he's a really good martial artist. I mean, you can kind of look at him and like sure, he's hefty now and doesn't really do anything
Sure. But I
but
mean, I'm sure he's put more hours into his training than I have mine.
right,
So,
and now and with time, you don't know where some of that stuff is people with axes to grind over the course of 40
mhm,
years or 50 years, however long he's been, on the scene
mhm.
of like, well, yeah, okay, well, he went to Japan, but he really wasn't that good, but he, married his instructor's daughter. And so, but like when you see him do stuff, you're like, wow, he clearly seems to know his stuff. So,
Right?
but it's just, I think that when he,
Well, and this is kind of like I say back to like with Chuck Norris, for example, is you may disagree with him, and he again, I'd not done the research. He may very well have been wrong, but I I don't believe, and maybe it's ignorance. I don't believe he was a bad person, right? Steven Seagal, you kind of
right,
go, maybe he's a bad person. And again, I
yeah.
haven't done the research on that, but that to me is where the difference lay.
Yeah,
And
I
if
mean, I didn't do any formal or informal polling, but many, 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 many people I've heard over the years, I have heard tell their stories about. I met Chuck Norris and he was fantastic, wonderful guy. Talked to me, we talked about training,
humble, yep,
da 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 da, whatever. He knows he's Chuck
hmm
Norris, but he was still pretty
right,
cool,
right,
and he trained. And I've seen way too many stories about Seagal that are like, oh yeah, he's
He's a
kind of slimy and he wanted money
off
for
the
this and he wouldn't talk to you and da 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 da, or he freaking broke your wrist, or you know,
right.
what I've heard way too many, and so the Norris stories are all again, unverified by me, da da da. Super nice guy, da 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 da. Good
Right.
martial artist, really supportive of the martial art, da 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 da.
Yeah.
Had some political views that, were not great, depending on where you stand. Um,
Exactly.
whatever,
Yeah.
and whatever. And then like Seagal is,
Yeah.
you know,
And I don't know,
whatever.
maybe
So
maybe we can um take some of that.
because
Go ahead.
oh well, because when it was like if you kind of go back, if you set the Wayback Machine
Hmm.
for I don't know late 80s, early 90s ish, whatever. Back when, there was this magazine called Black Belt, and it used to be the thing. And Bazing,
So bummed that magazine isn't. Is that magazine
Legacy
still around?
Legacy Media burn. Actually, I haven't seen it in the bookstore in a while. I think it's
No,
still
me
around,
either.
but anyway, I mean, I had a subscription. Everybody had a subscription back in
Hmm.
the 80s and 90s. Anyway, but and of course, every cover was Bruce Lee or Helio
Yeah.
Gracie versus Bruce Lee, or
Right.
Chuck Norris versus Bruce Lee. Everyone was
Uh-huh.
versus Bruce Lee versus Bruce Lee. So like he was, oh, the shining star, or
Hmm.
whatever. But I think sometime, maybe in the late 80s and early 90s, maybe when the internet kicked in, so maybe mid 90s or whatever, people started pointing out, it's like, well, oh, well, when Bruce Lee passed away, he was at the apartment of some lady who was not his wife.
Right.
And, maybe, and he was involved in the
Uh-huh.
triads. And, there was kind of this low level sort of maybe shade of like, maybe Bruce Lee was not the greatest thing ever because he passed away really young.
Yes.
And he passed away with a relatively small, I would say, orbit of students, like,
Very small. Yeah.
so yeah, like you were pointing out in the green room, like when Dan Inosanto passes away, I mean, I've
Hmm.
never heard anyone say anything bad about him, right?
Right.
And I mean,
Me either.
and clearly a super awesome martial artist, and so but like he's had time for people to get grudges and you
Yes,
know
absolutely.
keep that
Yeah,
bullet in
and
their holster for later. So it's
right.
it's like, would Bruce Lee have stood up to the scrutiny? A, if
Right.
he had lived that longer, but B, I mean, just like if he did what he did now somehow and then
Well,
pass
and
away, like the internet would blow up, right?
right. It's nobody's liked by everybody except me.
Yeah, everybody
Uh,
takes Dan.
uh but I don't know, maybe we can take some of this into our own lives too and realize that um there there are people that have political differences, um but that does not necessarily make them bad people. And we should, in my opinion, stop treating people that don't align with your opinion as bad people. We should treat them
Right.
as people that don't agree with you. I feel like there used to be a day
Hmm.
where it was like, oh, you don't agree with me. Well, we can either
Well,
talk about it and have a discussion about it, or we can agree to disagree, and that's
yeah,
okay. And then, go on with our training.
yeah.
And so,
And it's argument. I think probably the argument that some of the people that reached out to me after I posted my like, oh man, we lost Chuck Norris, was like, oh, it's because he was famous and he had a megaphone to espouse. I'm saying, and here's one of the sort of the nuance about it. About as much as I know, is like Chuck Norris was Chuck Norris, and Chuck Norris did Chuck Norris stuff, and he didn't really care because if you look at the memes, I mean, he didn't really care, right? So if he, was a super conservative political person and whatever, and and he didn't care that you don't care. He's
Right.
going to support it because he cares about it. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a legitimate fine. Everyone should be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
So, but you know, he was using his fame to lend legitimacy to something that you don't like, or that you disagree with. Now,
Right.
okay, well then you go be a famous martial artist.
Right. Right.
The part of me kind of goes like, well then fine, and then you do
Yeah.
your thing, right?
Yes.
And then you only wear black because you're a good guy, or enter the octagon, or what was the other ones? I don't know, I can't remember.
Um,
Anyway,
Fight in the rotunda.
no, it's the octagon. Oh, let's see
There's an
you.
octagon. There's a squared
Uh,
circle.
yeah, no. I was trying to throw
Uh,
some,
there's
you
the
know, his.
Coliseum.
I was trying to throw his movies in there, and I just think,
Well, the
I
Coliseum is
realized.
where he and Bruce Lee fought. So,
Oh, okay, yeah, I know, but that was in the course of the movie. So if you want to, you should enter the dragon, which is a bad one,
ah,
but because he died in that one. So right, so you should, Invasion USA, the so you don't become missing in action. Your what was it one? Didn't he do one with a dog? Anyway, so you don't have any silent rage. There you
there
go.
you
Whew.
go. There you
Ah,
go. Nice. Brought it home,
ah.
my man. Brought it home.
Ow. See,
Internet
again,
high
no, no, no,
five.
no research, no research involved. Just trying to remember all the because I posted it says like, well, I know what my movie marathon is going to be, and
Right.
that was one. Someone's like, and I was like, so, but I'm only going to go to Lone Wolf McQuade. So like
Right.
how far do I have to go?
Whew.
So
Silent
you know.
Rage. That was so good.
Yeah, yeah, and it was all that. I loved all the ones back in like the 80s or whatever when he always had like the inner voice,
Uh-huh.
the echoey like must
Ah,
concentrate,
ah.
cannot give
Oh,
in, and you see him trying to emote because again, remember he was a martial artist and then he did
right.
movies, so he was
Exactly.
not an actor, he was a martial
No.
artist. That someone said stand in front of this camera, and
Right.
because he do a
Oh,
flying
Delta
sidekick, boom.
Force. I'm gonna go watch Delta Force too.
That's right. Because that's got Lee Marvin in it. So, I mean, you can go like, okay, right on. So, no, I was about to say Lee Marvin. No, Lee Marvin didn't. I was going to say Lee Marvin because he trained with Bruce Lee. He didn't. That was
Right.
James
Or no?
Coburn.
James Colburn. Yeah. James
Yeah.
Colburn. Yep.
Yeah. Lee Marvin was just a Marine and like, rough, two-fisted, hard
Rough and
drinking,
tumble.
good old American actor
Yeah. American
back in the old
Brawler.
days. But yeah, James Coburn trained with Bruce Lee, from what I remember. So
Hmm.
famous people begetting famous people. Although it was before he was famous, before Bruce Lee was famous. But anyway, uh, hey, that was a multiple. Anyway, so I think that's a good place to stop because there's no resolution on this. This is more of just us
No,
talking,
there's no
throwing stuff against the
answer.
wall.
Yeah,
And
there's no answer to it,
I mean,
but
it's for me. I know I'm going to get flamed by at least one of my close personal friends that like I think it's a loss of martial arts. I mean, although
hmm.
yeah, arguably he didn't do a lot of cutting edge martial arts stuff in the last 20 years or whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
foundationally, I mean,
Yeah.
like I didn't look to him foundationally, as I said in the beginning of the show. I didn't look to him foundationally, but he was there, and so he was a driving force of
Yes.
martial arts
Hey, he was
through
part of
that
my
period where I got into it.
yeah, I was gonna say he was definitely part of the inspiration of why I got into martial arts, watching the movies and things like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I say, it just seems like not the appropriate time to shit on him, you know?
Well, and
Like,
yeah, and then that's what I mean. That's like it's like it happened so less than 24 hours, man. It wasn't even
yeah.
like you know,
I
something
think
bad
there's a lot of
happened,
people
and
that they like the virtue signal, like,
uh,
look how
and
great
it's
I
really
am.
easy, right?
And
It's
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 really
like
easy.
you know. I mean, we took 2 weeks to address it, but it's like it's. And I know the internet was sitting there going like, "What do Paul and Dan have to say about this?"
I know,
So,
right?
which which
With bated
is
breath, I'm sure.
everything before Lone Wolf McQuade, everybody. That's all
That's
you need
right.
to know.
That's all you
Everything
need to
before Lone
know.
Wolf McQuade.
That's right.
Yeah, because it is what it is. But anyway, uh, hey Dan, that was a grollicking conversation.
It was.
we'd like to hear from you guys
Yeah.
on the Facebook page, on the emails, on the Spotifys, on the YouTubes. You can comment there, here, there, anywhere on the website,
Hmm.
whatever's going on. Some people have let me know that the Apple Podcast links aren't working, which is weird. The Karate Cafe tech team and the massive Karate Cafe studio is hard at work on scratching their heads on this. So, in the meantime, go listen to us anywhere else in the world that works. Because
That's
Apple,
right.
really, how long can it last?
It's good YouTube. You want to see our pretty faces
It's new
anyway, don't
tech.
you?
That's right. Look at that. I mean,
Come
although,
on.
I mean, you never clean up. I
No,
mean,
I mean,
so you need
I,
one of those backgrounds that is all
that's
covered
true.
up.
I
Yeah, no,
did
I need to
shower today,
shave.
so that's good.
So I got, hey, so did I. Oh, well, because I knew I had a
Right?
podcast, so I showered.
Exactly.
The
But yeah, get YouTube Premium too. It's worth it, trust me.
see, I'm not getting a kickback on that, so that's all Dan.
Yeah. I'm getting all the kickback.
I know all that sweet, sweet podcast money. Anyway,
I mean,
uh, yeah, and like and subscribe and leave comments,
do the
leave
things,
reviews, whatever. Do all the
hit
stuff
the
that the kids are
hit
doing these
the
days.
buttons and
Yep.
tickle the fancy.
All right, and delete all the information so that way when you pass away, no one can go like, oh, well, that time they said this stuff,
That's
and
right. That's right.
everyone will remember you kindly.
Yeah.
Dan, good talking to you again,
You too.
and we will talk to you all again very soon.
Bye, everybody.